Hello. Thank you for joining us for Shining Light on Shadows, a candid conversation about mental health. This is episode 35, if you can believe it. And our guest is Karissa Gretebeck. The topic, the loneliness of parenting two very different children. And we'll explain a little bit about what that means in just a moment. My name is Neil Parekh. I'm the co-host and producer. And oh no, that way. That's Dawn. She's my co-host. And we have been doing this show, Dawn, now for about a year and a half, since February of 2024.
Crazy.
It is. I still remember when we started the show that the goal really is to lower the stigma around mental health. And we've been able to have a range of different guests on, people sharing their personal stories, their lived experience. We've also had advocates, therapists. We've had people who are of various ages. And I think in the near future, we're hoping to get some high school students on the show as well to share their perspectives. Some of the challenges they're dealing with and some of the advocacy work they're doing.
Yeah, it's been great. Just before we came on, we were talking with Karissa about how cathartic it is and how kind of therapeutic it is for us as hosts,
yes.
To have these conversations and really, it's like a hour-long therapy session sometimes when we're on the show. So I'm glad we've continued to do it.
I couldn't agree more. It is as important for us, and speaking for me personally, but I think for you as well. We've been able to share a lot of our experiences, process some of our own things. I'll say one thing that I've been thinking about in the last few days, just being able to talk about some things has really helped me change some things in my life. I'm going to go back to last year when I shared that, when we were talking about self-care, I was having trouble, taking my medication on a regular basis. And, even just putting it out there, just saying those words and being accountable, particularly my family who watches the show, my sister and my mom, I was able to just turn the tide and just kind of change my habits around that. So it makes a huge, huge difference. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and my website. We're on both my Facebook and Dawn's Facebook, and both of our Instagram channels as well. So we ask you to like, comment, share, retweet, tag a friend who you think might be interested in this topic, and that they let them know that they can always watch it later if they're not, if they weren't expecting it and they don't have time this evening. They can always watch it on demand at their convenience, which is always nice. The show is produced by Digimentors, or we get pro bono support from Digimentors to produce the show. Digimentors is the consulting firm that my colleague Sri Srinivasan started. I'm the VP of Events and Communications. And we produce digital programs like this. We do digital marketing, communications, trainings, and workshops. We're also doing a lot of work around AI. But more importantly, I always appreciate the support I get from my Digimentors colleagues who will share the show, will comment, will watch it later. Means a lot when people do that. I want to give them a quick shout out. We have some people who are already watching, who are checking in. So if you're watching on any of those channels, go ahead and leave a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We can put your comment on the screen. And the first hello goes out to my mom watching from Hastings on Hudson. Thank you, Mom, for always watching. Sudha Parekh. I'm never quite sure, Dawn, whether I should refer to her as Mom or Sudha on the show for people who don't know who she
I
is.
think mom's fine.
Mom's fine.
Yeah.
Mom's fine. People will see the last name, I assume.
Yes.
So if I'm calling her mom, what are you calling this guy?
My husband.
Hubby?
My hubby.
Hubby is watching from the next room. Thanks, Jim. Always appreciate it. Jonathan is watching. And it says the links in my email seem to be blocked by his server. Jonathan, we'll definitely follow up about that. That's the first time I've heard that. But things often change. But thank you for letting me know. Jonathan is someone who's watched several of these shows and has been a longtime friend for a lot of the online work that we've done through Digimentors. Kate is watching. She's excited about this topic, and Dawn is pointing down because that's where her comment is, and that's actually where she is. Kate is Dawn's landlady and also close friend. I've gotten to know Kate as well from my multiple visits to Milwaukee. As recently as end of June, I was there for a conference.
Yep.
Wallach Kiger is watching from Tallahassee, Florida. She's sorry she can't hang around. She's on the move, but thinking of us as we work through this topic tonight. Paula, thank you so much. An example of one of my Digimentors colleagues showing up. And now the comments are really coming in. So we're going to put a couple of them on and then bring some back on when Karissa is watching, because Jackie Wagner is watching from McHenry. Dawn, unless Jackie's a friend of yours, I'm going to star that as a friend of Carissa's, potentially. Nancy Clarkin is watching from Tosa in support of her United Way family. We should point out that Karissa works at United Way. Dawn worked at United Way for about 20 years until recently. That's how she met Karissa. So I'm hoping we have other United Way folks as well. Nancy, if you don't know, I actually worked at United Way as well, not in Milwaukee. I worked in Washington State and then at the headquarters in DC. So it's all in the United Way family. Diana is watching, here to support Karissa. This is getting good. Thank you, Diana. And Jonathan reminded us he was also a guest on the show. Thank you, Jonathan. My bad for forgetting that. Kara is watching. We love Karissa. Karissa, this is getting quite the buildup. Sydney, a lover of Karissa and Dawn, friends of United Way. And Laura is watching from Tosa. Now, Tosa is short for
Wauwatosa.
Wauwatosa, exactly. I didn't want to guess. And we have another mom watching. Diane Clevin is watching. Carissa's mom from Illinois. So thank you, Diane. It's always great to have family watching. And Jackie is Carissa's aunt. I did not realize that. So that is
Karissa,
wonderful.
you're getting lots of love.
I know, right? For folks who are watching, if you're watching on Facebook primarily, make sure you press play on the video. If you're watching it, if it came through your feed and you're just watching the video go by, make sure to press play on the actual video. So if you leave a comment, we will see it. As I mentioned at the top of the show, the topic is the loneliness of parenting two very different children. The challenges when one child has specific needs, whether they're mental health or physical needs, and the impact that has on the parent, in this case, our moms. I'm going to serve more of the role of a moderator in this conversation because I have one daughter, but Dawn and Karissa are both dealing with this issue. Karissa wrote a blog post, so I'm going to pull that up real quick. And the title of it, Balancing the Needs of Two Very Different Daughters and My Mental Health. The quote, how can I be all these things to all these people? How do I continue to show up to be the person my family deserves when I feel like I'm splitting in two? We will bring Karissa up to explore that topic and share a little bit of some of the challenges she's had as a mom. Karissa, welcome to the program.
Hi, Hi, Dawn. Hi, Neil. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.
You bet.
So let's jump right in because we have so many people who are joining to watch you. They don't want to hear me and Dawn speak, right? I do want to, before we jump in, I do want to take a moment just to acknowledge that earlier this week there was a school shooting in Minnesota, and it just, as parents, I still remember when Sandy Hook happened, and we've had school shootings for since Columbine, really going back 20 plus years, 30 years. But I remember when Sandy Hook happened because my wife was pregnant at the time, and that hit differently than every other shooting. And any parent seeing that he was an 8 and 10-year-old, we have, Chris and I, our kids, your daughters are right in that age group. Mine is a little bit older. But our hearts go out to those families, and we just want to take a moment to recognize that before we get into tonight's topic. So, Karissa, before we talk about the impact that this has on you as a mom, tell us a little bit about your children. You talked about you have two very different children. What can you tell us about that?
That I do. So I am one of two girls growing up, and ironically, I have two daughters as well. So my oldest is Evie. She's 9, just went into 4th grade, and she is spunky and sassy and spirited and, marches to her own beat. She is one of these children that's just naturally good at everything she tries, absolutely everything. She's very athletic, but very creative. And again, things just come very naturally to her. And she is typically developing. And my younger daughter, Elsie, just turned 6, and she is joyful and kind, very empathetic, very sensitive, likes to be funny. And she also is neurodivergent. So her brain works a little bit differently than most people, and the way she experiences the world is likely very different than you or I. She also has a variety of medical complexities, and these are all things that she was born with. So I call both of my girls my rare gems, but Elsie truly is one in a million, billion, trillion.
You mentioned that, and this is a picture of both of your children. Was this most recent Christmas or?
This was, yes. So this was just late 2024, and it takes a lot to get photos, I will say. Evie will smile for the camera anytime, and Elsie very adamantly doesn't love getting her picture taken. She doesn't want to stop, doesn't want to do that. So I think she's mid sentence there, if you can tell.
So you mentioned that she's neurodivergent, and you mentioned that first. Can you talk a little bit about so it's a combination of both mental, emotional issues and physical.
Yes.
Does one present as more of a challenge than the other? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. I think, where this kind of started was the medical components of it were very, very difficult just after she was born. I had a very typical healthy second pregnancy, feeling good as that second time mom. I kind of know what to expect. I can enjoy the baby phase more. I won't be so nervous. And very unbeknownst to me or my husband, within 12 hours of having her, she had a seizure in my arms and completely went limp. And all of a sudden, everybody's running into the room and pretty much we're saying, whatever's happening with this baby isn't something that's good. So we're going to take her. and we're going to be figuring it out. You just, stay put, mama. And you have no idea, your life just feels like it's unraveling in front of you. And so we spent the next 30 days in the NICU with this very sick baby that we had no idea would be our course. And, the trauma that came from that was really difficult. Bringing her home was very difficult because the medical interventions, she was tube fed. She was on medication that we were giving to her regularly. We were checking her blood sugars every few hours. So the medical weight of what was going on with her that we had to do and that we knew was significant. But there was also so much that was still very unexplained and unknown and yet to be determined. And no one could really tell us what her course was going to be. So to answer you, I will say in the beginning, it was definitely the medical components of physical and medical components of her diagnosis were the most challenging. It's interesting because now, as we've kind of gotten a handle on a lot of that, knock on wood, and she's doing really well from like a physical standpoint. And now it's becoming more of, as we start school age and the intellectual disability and this gap between her and her peers, starting to widen a little bit more, and sort of just the ability to emotionally regulate and make friends and participate in activities, that truly is becoming what I think for my husband and I is just most challenging. And it's like, we came into this not expecting it, not choosing this road, and it just continues to kind of open up in front of us. We still have no idea where we're going. I always say we're taking the scenic route with this one.
So Karissa, when we kind of had our prep call, we talked a little bit about how difficult it is to navigate that balance between our two children. And you talked about one of the things that really touched me when you were talking is that feeling of loneliness, because it's such a battle over who is vying for your attention and who you give that attention to. So can you expand a little bit on that, just that feeling of loneliness and kind of how that affects you and what that does?
Yeah, I think, on this journey, it has been, sprinkled with so much unimaginable joy. Truly, parts of it have been like the highest of highs when there's something you didn't anticipate your child being able to do, or you were told that may never happen, and it's happening in front of your eyes. I mean, it is miraculous, like that I have gotten to experience that. It absolutely takes my breath away, and I'm so grateful that I get to see that and witness that. But there are also the lowest of lows, and some of those lowest of lows are just so riddled with grief and fear that I'm not, mothering both of them in the ways that they need. I constantly feel like I'm caught in sort of this push and pull. I think of most recently, I'm at a soccer game with Evie, my older daughter, and she's very good because, again, she's naturally good at things she tries, and I'm celebrating her and I'm cheering her on, and I'm just elated to watch this child that I carry doing these amazing things and feeling so proud of herself. And then in that same moment, I'm kind of riddled with feeling loneliness and grief because at the same time, I'm thinking my younger daughter may never do that. She may never get to experience something like that because her body won't let her, or because, the way she participates in the world isn't accepted in the same way. And so you're you're constantly in this push and pull of emotions, like everything blending together, the good, the hard, the joyful, the terrifying. And I hear so much from my older daughter, especially as she gets more mature, that when Elsie's having a hard day, when Elsie's calling my name over and over, when Elsie needs this attention, she just ever so quietly kind of slips into the background and says, you should go. Elsie needs you. I'll wait. I'll read over here. And I'm so proud of her that she's building empathy and that she's seeing this and that she's, helping where she can. But it absolutely breaks me that she feels like she has to put herself in the back seat, over and over and over. And I worry a lot about how much I lean on Evie for help with Elsie. Can you please just play that game again? She really wants to. You can tell she's going to get upset. Let's just do everything we can to keep things calm. And I almost put this little mother kind of role on her. And that's not fair to her either, because she's a kid. And I need to be, a mom to her too, and her feelings are valid. And so I think I struggle so much and feel so alone in that my children are almost always at odds. Their needs are always in two completely separate directions. I'm always running the opposite way with the other one. It's like a race that I feel like I'll never catch up. I'll just be on it indefinitely.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dawn.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that it's heartbreaking to hear you describe that, and I can see how you would get pushed into that situation, and for your daughter to have that level of maturity at such a young age, it is touching. I wanted to make sure you knew and that you saw that you're not alone. You saw people who love you. When we were doing the introductions before you joined, we went through a few of these, but I want to bring in the other comments that have come in. So we'll start with Jackie Wagner, watching from McHenry.
That's my Aunt Jackie.
Hey, Jackie. Nancy is watching from Wauwatosa, supporting you and Dawn as fellow United Way folks. Diana is watching, here to support you.
My best friend.
Kara says that we love you. Another person, Sydney, right? I mean, when I do these shows and I've talked about my own issues on these episodes. When you have people who take the time to watch the episode live, not everyone does, not everyone has the time, but also to comment and to be there for you, to show up for you, it's something special. It really is.
It's a testament to also who Karissa is as a human being. So.
True. Laura Beth is watching as well. I was particularly touched when Diane, your mom from Illinois, which is always great. But Sarah is watching as well.
Yay, Sarah.
Says, yay, Karissa. And she has so much love for Kelsey. And Lauren is watching. Love this. Love your sweet girls, Karissa. How much does the support of your friends and family play in this in terms of helping you process this, manage this?
Oh, gosh. I am so blessed because I am just surrounded by, I have incredible and supportive family. I have very close relationships with my mom and my sister. And I have very dear longtime friends from college. And I'm, friends that are in our circle now with our children's school and work. And I'm very blessed by all of that. And I do feel very uplifted and supported and seen and heard. But there is always that, underlying sort of underbelly of loneliness. And I have thought so long and hard about that, of like, why does that exist when I'm surrounded by so many people and I know they would be here and I know they love me and they wouldn't judge me? But there's also this feeling that for most of them, they just they can't understand it. Like, there are things about this road, just like someone would tell you who has struggled with something else, that unless you're on it, unless you're in it, unless it's something that you have this responsibility now of carrying and acting out for the rest of your life, there are just parts of it that I don't even feel like I could articulate to someone to help them understand. And so there's just always sort of that low current of loneliness and grief because of how things have played out.
Yeah, and I know, Karissa, we had also talked about the factor of being the mom, and I think that we both kind of agreed that there's you have your significant other, right? You have your co-parent whom you love tremendously,
Oh, yeah.
but but they also have their own experience, which is different than yours. And so, people might say, well, but you have so and so, or you have so and so, or you have so and so. But the reality is, how you experience it and how you feel as a mom is different than how your husband feels and sees it as a dad. So can you talk
Yes.
a little bit about that? Because I thought you so eloquently had talked about that too.
Yes. After going through it, I definitely feel like, traumatic situations or these crazy shifts in your life that you live through, these, things that happen to you, especially when you are in a relationship or a partnership, a marriage. I do feel like those things that you endure individually or together have this ability to either push you closer together, to hold on to one another to get through it, or to push you, repel you further apart, because you're processing and dealing with things in such totally polarizingly different ways that you just can't even bring that back together. And I'm not going to say we've always been pushed back together, but we are fortunate in that is how it has happened for us. I think I take a lot on, yes, as the mother, because I carried, this baby. And I think for a little while, especially after I had her and that anxiety was settling in, and the fear and the worry, and still like living in that unknown of what is this girl going to be living with? What are we going to be living with as a family? There was this tremendous guilt of feeling like I didn't grow her right, or did I do something to make this happen, and how could I live, with myself if it was because of me, knowing that it was absolutely in God's hands, completely out of our control. But I kind of took that on, and that was something I don't feel like my husband could understand. And the way we process things is so differently. I'm very okay with being vulnerable. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I will share about my experiences because it's cathartic. My husband holds everything in until it's just going to come seeping out. And so I think almost it's forced us as a couple to better respect and understand the ways that we each process, our journey, grief, fear, everything that's gone into it, and hold space for one another when and where we can, and to feel supported in processing things in our own ways, but knowing that we're never too far away, should we need help.
And right on cue, Diana has a comment. The way Karissa shares so openly with the world, we can all learn a thing or two from her.
I don't
And
know about
I
that.
say this. I say the same about Dawn every episode. I think it's incredible. That that sense of letting your vulnerability show is not easy. And it really it's a testimony to how strong you are, how strong you have to be.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about our conversation with Mike Wood 2 weeks ago. If folks saw the show, or if you don't know, Mike Wood is the Chief Operating Officer for NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. But he was sharing his own personal story about growing up in a very traumatic childhood, and the challenge of parenting with that experience. And one of the things he mentioned is that he also has a child who has special needs. I believe they were on the autism spectrum. And he said that he and his wife, or he approached it with his wife in a very focused, okay, like we're going to organize. I'm blanking on his son's name, but let's say it was Thomas. We're just going to set up Thomas Inc. as the focus of our work. They were co-CEOs of Thomas Inc., and everything was organized around making sure that Thomas had what he needed. It was a different situation in terms of not having the two children issue and having to kind of balance that. But he did mention that he and his wife got separated because they were pulled apart. They
It's hard.
and that happens to a lot of people facing
It's really
situations.
hard.
It's very hard.
Yeah, Karissa, when you were talking about that, being a mother and like growing your child, I'm sure I'm going to talk a little bit about the blog that I wrote in a minute, but one of the hardest statements that my son ever said to me was that I think he was probably in high school, and he said that he was never going to have children because he didn't want to pass down his mental health issues to them, and that he didn't ask to be born. And I say that because that feeling of guilt, and it wasn't meant for, he didn't say it to be hurtful. He didn't say it to make me feel bad. Like, I don't think at the time he knew that, like, it crushed my soul. Right.
Sure it did.
Yeah, it did. It crushed my soul. And then there's this battle because I could not imagine this world without this human being in it. Like, he is so self-reflective and caring and kind and compassionate and loves so hard and so well, that, my response to him was, well, I'm glad you're in this world, and of course now he's 23 years old and has a lovely girlfriend and a wonderful life, and still struggles with mental health issues, but has a very, I think, different perspective.
Yeah.
Still doesn't want to have any children, and that's certainly his prerogative. But I feel that tinge, right, when you talk about that, like, I know I didn't grow him wrong. And yes, mental health issues are genetic and they do pass down, and I have them and my dad has them. And there's probably some of that transferred to him. But that feeling of like, did I do something wrong? And was it unfair? Was it unfair to my child that he has to deal with these mental health issues because I wanted to have children? It's just that's that feeling, right? That feeling of that no one else necessarily can understand unless they're in your exact same position.
You mentioned your blog post, Dawn. I think that's a great segue to talk about your perspective on this as a mother of two children. As the mother, you talked a little bit about your son. You have your daughter, Brittany, I think, is in the similar position as Evie in terms of being well adjusted and thriving. But here's the blog post you wrote with the headline, "Being a mom can sometimes be very lonely and isolating. When one of your children has a mental or physical illness, that changes the playing field. Keeping your own mental wellness in check is also tricky when you navigate motherhood." And these are some of the themes that we've been talking about. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the challenges you've had? You've shared, as you do online, but also through this show, some of the challenges you've had, but specifically in relation to having the two children issue and having to pay more attention to one over the other. How does that play out for you?
Yeah, anybody on this call who is a parent, certainly to more than one child, that children respond differently to different tactics and different ways of parenting. And it's not cookie cutter. You can't parent both children exactly the same way. They have different feelings, they have different thoughts, they have different personalities and experiences. And I don't care what anybody tells you, you just cannot parent your children exactly equally. And
I can,
yes,
I'm interrupting because I actually can relate to that. I feel like I have two different children sometimes. She doesn't respond to the same things one day to the next, right? But
that's true too.
But we could never imagine. I mean, just being a parent of a single child, we just can't imagine what it'd be like to have two children under regular circumstances, much less challenging circumstances.
Yeah. And as anybody who watches this show knows, my son has mental health challenges, has social and general anxiety disorder and depression. And you had to do things differently with him. He had to be made aware that we were going to be leaving the house, and I had to give him an appropriate amount of time to know that we were leaving, because if I disrupted something that he was in the middle of doing, it was just a meltdown. There was just no good way to do that unless I gave him a warning that we were going to be leaving the house. And with Brittany, I could be like, "Hey, we got to go." And we could just get up and go, and she would come right along. And a lot of times when she was probably middle schoolish, she just didn't understand why Clayton got treated differently than she got treated. And I think a lot of times she didn't feel like it was fair. And I think she has come to kind of understand kind of that different way I had to navigate that. But the same with your situation, Karissa, in some ways, not exactly the same, but we would go on vacation. And if Clayton was having a bad day there, I would have to send Morgan and Brittany off to do something. And I just happened to have the right way with Clayton. So it was always you take Brittany. I don't want her to miss out on doing the things we said we were going to do. I'll stay here with Clayton. And that kind of, I feel guilty because I missed really exciting vacation oriented things. But as a mom, I needed to make sure that my other child was safe and taken care of and was able to get through his circumstances at that time. And that's a push and pull. And, my daughter used to say that, Clayton was my favorite child. And that's horrible, right? Because I love both of my children. They're amazing kids in very different ways. And I just had to give him more attention. And also, just to relate a little bit to you, Karissa, Brittany was very much a mother figure to Clayton. She she knew exactly what was going on and how I was going to either help him, or if he needed her help, she would help him. And, I went out of town for work often when they were like younger,
Yeah.
and my husband just didn't have the same, I think, empathetic way, and she would take on that role when I was gone. And I will say, she's a special ed teacher,
I
and
know.
I think that she it influenced who she is as a person today in a lot of extremely positive ways. So
Yes.
I think at the time, we're thinking like, oh my God, like I'm not doing it right. I'm not doing good enough by her. Um, and at the same time, she's growing into this human being that, really cares about young people who have developmental and emotional issues because of her experiences, which I think um, helps that resolve, for me. So
It's beautiful. It's
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah, but difficult at the same time,
Yes.
and
Yes.
two
And you,
things true at the same time.
oh, yes. I totally empathize and feel that, Dawn, especially at, traveling, or you're going to do something fun for the weekend, like with Elsie, it's kind of always a mixed bag. Are we feeling like we're in a good mood? Are we feeling regulated? Are our emotions in the right place so that we're going to have a good time? Or what's this going to look like? And so we're always like walking on eggshells a little bit, but to the point where I will go and I will stay with Elsie, or we will do something different. And my husband will take Evie and go do this other thing. And I'd be lying if I didn't say there were times that, yeah, I felt really bad because I felt like I'm missing out on getting to do things with my older daughter and see her do fun things and experience things. And we're missing out on that whole 4-person family unit where we do the things together and we experience them together. And that's what's getting harder, I think, is it feels like sometimes we're very much doing things, operating in these like silos of like parent child. And then I turn and I play the comparison game and I look around and all these families are able to go and do these different things and they're all doing them together and everything's working out. And, hindsight's 2020 and you can never really know what's going on, but it is difficult. And I think that contributes to me to this loneliness feeling because now it's, well, I have to stay back at home with my younger one. We can't go do the fun thing because I think it would be too much. And that plays into, my mental health as well. It's just a struggle that everything in life has this additional layer of complexity that you have to think through and anticipate. And for me, get anxious about, right? And it just keeps rolling.
For both of you, sorry, Dawn, for both of you, it's primarily you're caring for the younger child. Is it like 100% in terms of if there's ever a split, or is it back and forth a little bit?
For me, it's back and forth, and my husband is amazing, but there, are seasons with Elsie where all she wants is mom over and
Sure.
over and over. That's the only person she wants to be with, and that is so hard because in those seasons, I need a little break from you.
Yeah.
I need to have a moment from being on and being in it, and then I can't step back because she doesn't want, my husband, and then she'll flip flop and do the other thing. But that makes it really hard when you feel like you can't tag out.
Well, sometimes you develop, if you, I mean, this is where there is a very small parallel with an only child. But if one parent develops kind of understands how to manage a child, to work with them, to speak to them. It almost like you lean toward that parent doing it. The other parent then doesn't have a chance to develop that skill, and so you actually grow further apart. But it makes sense when you do it, right? Like if it's kind of like the proverbial when usually they joke about the guy staying home, and men don't babysit, they parent, they take care of their children, but when they're home but they don't know how to do something or whatever, it becomes a challenge, and is, I'll just do it myself type of thing, and that just perpetuates that divide. So certainly I would think this would be even more so in your situations.
I think it was for me. I think, Karissa, you talked very eloquently about that push and pull and how, you've learned to navigate it and manage it. I think, Neil, what you just said is exactly what happened. Because I'm kind of a control freak, and I put this on me, and I felt like if I didn't help in the situation was not going to turn out well. And so I took it over. And then I never gave my husband the opportunity necessarily to develop that kind of skill set with my son. So when he was alone with him, that's why my daughter had to step in, because my husband just didn't I didn't allow him the opportunity to do that. Because I needed to be in control of that. Like I really, and in fairness to myself, on the occasion that I did let him do that, it did not necessarily turn out well. So, there's that too. But I did want to ask Karissa a question, because I really wanted to make sure that we touch on our own mental health.
Yes.
And I wanted you to talk a little bit about how do you take care of yourself? How do you practice self-care and wellness for yourself? And what did you have to do to kind of get to that place to know how important that was?
Yes, all good questions. It is still a work in progress for me, as I am sure it is for most people. You always seem to come last, even though that's what you really need. I have had generalized anxiety disorder since I was a very young child. I'm also a very highly sensitive person. I tend to overthink and think through things, and I just stew on things. And so that's very in tune to other people's feelings and reactions. And so that obviously, when you add that to, the card I've been dealt, the situation that I'm in with my children, it's just, it's very difficult. I think my husband, during my postpartum period, I was having some very disturbing negative thoughts about how to handle how I was feeling. I felt so just numb and disconnected, almost disassociated from myself. I'm sure some of that was postpartum, but also just what was happening. And that was the only way I could cope. And so I started then with cognitive behavioral therapy and just kind of talking through things, which was very helpful for me. And I was paired with a therapist that really finally explained things to me in a way that I got and could understand. And so I'm not seeing anyone now, but I have, and I'm not afraid to when I need to. I am on a medication to it works for me. It helps me with just keeping things calm and balanced for me and able to juggle all the things. And I find that I really need those sort of tag out periods. And so my husband and I we struggle, but often we're pretty good about reading one another's cues and giving each other that time and making it a point. Mom, you need to go take a break today. You go do your thing, without judgment, resentment, somebody's not doing enough. So I think for me, those kind of tag outs have been just really, really important. And honestly, a big part of my self-care, I love to write. And I have written hundreds of reflections about this life I'm living as I'm living it. And there are moments where everything just pours out of me onto the page without me even having to think about it. And that feels like such a cathartic release for me. And I can tell when I need to do it because stuff just starts stewing for too long. It is just such a great way for me to process what's happening in real time. And so I think I've been really trying to identify what are those things that work for me and are realistic for just my life and my schedule. And so those are some things that have helped, but it is a struggle.
We have a couple of comments that I want to share real quick. Kate earlier said that she's supporting you always. Want to make sure you saw that. My mom, Sudha,
saw that. I read that.
had
It was so
a
kind.
longer comment. So obviously she's meeting you for the first time, but she could tell, and she wrote this earlier, but you must be undergoing a lot of anxiety and insecurity and the fear of the unknown, particularly with your daughter and what her future might be like. It's, can be overburdening and overwhelming, and feeling guilty about this, about not giving enough attention to your older daughter. But she says you're strong and coping, and says congratulations.
That was so kind. Thank you.
Thumbs everything up right there. Diana, we shared her comment earlier about how you share openly with the world. Nancy Clarkin, both of you can relate to this. Add a demanding job to this mix, where you sometimes simply can't be there for your child, and that just gives more guilt. Even though it might be a break that you might need. But that's certainly a huge challenge. I think that's one of the things that we're focusing on, and we've talked a lot about, and you've kind of really managed this fairly well, is to just be honest with yourself about what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. The last thing you want to do is to try and shove it down and pretend it's not there, to assume that you can do it just because you have to. That's a big thing in terms of just admitting that you're not perfect, that you're not superhuman, you're not a robot. These are all things that I've been hearing lately, just in terms of you talked about your daughter being neurodivergent. I was curious in terms of exactly how that plays out for her, because that's such a broad term. So much can fall under that. I've shared on this show that I was diagnosed with ADHD just about a year ago, and that reframed everything for me. You mentioned generalized anxiety disorder. That's what I thought I had. I thought I had occasional depression, and it's ADHD that leads to those things. But the biggest thing is that being able to realize that you're just not perfect, you're not a robot, and some things may not happen, some things may fall through. How do you deal with that, or how you accept that is key. I haven't always been good about that, frankly.
I think we probably all haven't always been good about that, Neil. So give yourself a little grace.
Yeah. Grace, self-compassion.
Yeah, that's been a big learning for me, I think. I have always had a lot of negative self-talk, perfectionist. I want to do everything right, everything working in my favor. And then when things don't go that way, I remember my therapist so beautifully saying, and I think about this still often, is, would you talk to your best friend about all of this the way you're talking to yourself? And it was, oh my gosh, no.
Yeah.
I would say she has every right to feel those things and that it's okay and it doesn't make her a bad person for some of these, thoughts that are running through during a really hard, traumatic time. And that finally gave me the okay to, do a lot of self-work to try to block out those voices when they come.
The big thing I learned, and that we talked about even just this week, that idea of being a perfectionist. Dawn can tell you that I am a perfectionist, and that I really push myself on a lot of things. But that's always been something of a criticism of how I am. And one of the things we talked about in this coaching group I'm in around ADHD is that people who have ADHD tend to be perfectionists. That's just how you're wired.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually revelatory for me to realize that it's not something that I chose to do. It's not something that I am at fault for. It's just who I am, that I have this need, this desire, this intention for everything to be perfect. I mean, and then there are other reasons, and people have experienced trauma, and we've talked about that. You want to control your environment, etc. But there's a actual like chemical or DNA or kind of how your brain is wired to actually think a certain way. That changes everything. It's not, don't criticize. I mean, the amount of times I've been criticized at work for being a perfectionist is a lot. I've actually started telling people, I've started emailing, dealing with different projects, like, I'm sorry for all the details, but this is how my brain works. This is how I'm wired. And the more we can kind of understand that and accept that, the better. I will say that Dawn has never criticized me for being a perfectionist. I think it's maybe chiding, or maybe you're trying to encourage me not to.
But I think that's because I am not
friendly chiding.
Yeah, I think it's because I'm not a perfectionist, and I admire people who don't do things halfway and do them fully and completely. Because I tend to, do things until they're done, but not completely done. And my husband is probably sitting in the other room clapping for my acknowledgement of that. I finish my drink and set it on the counter and don't pour it out and put it in the recycle bin. And he comes by and pours it out and puts it in the recycle bin. So things like that. So I appreciate people who are perfectionists and who can do that. And I don't know, Neil, I know it's getting to be almost 7 o'clock, and Neil just celebrated an anniversary, and he is going out to dinner with his lovely bride tonight. So I want to make sure that we are on time.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you. Usually it's Dawn that's pushing us to finish, and I'm okay with going a little longer. But I actually told Dawn that we made reservations, that I have like a 5-minute window to get out of here once we finish the show. So we will definitely do that. Karissa, thank you for joining us today. It really was a great conversation to be able to focus on parenting and talking about the challenges that you have, but to make sure that we reflect back on how it impacts you as a person and some of the steps you need to do for self-care. As we close out, I want to share a few more comments. Jonathan says a detail-oriented is a better term than perfectionist. Yeah, that sounds good, which alas has negative connotations. My mom says, very good show. This can be educational for many people, those who are going through similar situations. Jim and Jonathan are offering their anniversary greetings, so thank you.
That's nice.
Nancy says thank you and love you, and Kara says thank you all. Diana says, so honored to be your friend. Great show. I want to point out to folks, if you're interested, for all the people who are watching for the first time, if you would like to join our mailing list, we only send out one email per show, occasionally two, but it's like one or two emails every 2 weeks. It's not a lot, but you'll keep up with any schedule changes and the upcoming episodes, etc. And certainly, if anyone is interested in being a guest on the show, if you are comfortable talking about whatever issues you might be dealing with in public, Dawn and Karissa are great examples of this. We certainly would appreciate that, and reach out to any one of us, Karissa, Dawn, or me.
Mhm.
My email address was on the screen, and it's in the comments as well. Diana is honored to be your friend. Diane, your mom, always here for you. Love you lots. Thank you so much. And then Lisa, who is
My mother-in-law.
your mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Love you, KK. You're doing an amazing job with all that is on your plate.
Thank you.
After a show like this, can I call you KK as well?
Sure. My maiden name obviously was Clevin, so I was double K. You're welcome to call me that, Neil.
Norwegian, right?
Yes.
We had an exchange student in high school, Gry Clevin, as I remember the way she pronounced it.
Crazy. That's amazing.
Yeah. Don't meet too many people with that last name.
No.
Thank you so much, really.
Yeah.
I just said thank you so much for being willing to share, and we really appreciate you.
And I know how close you two are as well. Jackie says Chris has a beautiful soul and makes the world a better place. Love you,
Jackie.
so much.
You're so nice.
So much love for you,
Yes,
Karissa.
I am. I'm very blessed.
We'll end the show with their moms, but they keep coming in. Nancy, thank you for this series, Dawn and Neil. Well, we will appreciate that. We'll take that as a thank you, Nancy. Hopefully you'll watch one of our future episodes. We will let you know about our guest. We don't have our guest for September 11th. That's our next episode. But we'll keep everyone informed, and hopefully we'll see you online. Thank you so much, and take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.